People change. Why? Because of the context. They change because of bad things or good things. They change because bad things are happening and they want away from them, or their good things could happen and they want to move to them. You've got to find the power, and the power is there.
Hi there, welcome to Bottle Up Podcast for Families. I'm Lou.
And I'm John, and today we're going to talk about powerlessness and detachment.
We're going to be looking at what is known as learned helplessness, powerlessness and addiction. We're going to get the professor going at that point. Detachment, breaking the patterns you may have found yourself getting into, and freeing yourself by changing negatives into positives. So, learned helplessness. There's a kind of science to this, isn't there? Could you tell us who was the man, the famous man?
The famous man is Martin Seligman.
Okay.
Martin Seligman, he did these experiments where he gave dogs electric shocks. They were in a cage and the base of the cage was electrified. And the dogs couldn't escape.
It's really interesting because, I've heard this story for years, but the place that society has gone where they would never do something like this. And if you're feeling like that, no, thank goodness now we don't do this anymore. But there was a really good point, wasn't there, that Martin came up with because of that. And I think we just need to say that for
there was a lot of experiments around that time which would not be countenance in any way today, but there were very good points came from it.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. What he was looking at was why, after he gave them electric shocks and then took the front of the cage, why did they not try and escape? They were still getting electric shocks, but they would not escape from the cage.
Oh.
Why? Because the front of the cage was gone, they could get out anytime they wanted. And that's when he coined the phrase, learned helplessness. Because people felt that they were in this situation, it was inevitable, there was nothing they could do about it. They were, and this is where the phrase powerless came in. I mean, it's been used in other contexts, but they were powerless to do anything about it. And if we look at other situations in life, sometimes people feel they're oppressed by situations, but they can't do anything about it. They have there's nothing they can possibly do to change the situation. It's life. That's it. And to some extent, we see this in when living with a drinker. That these things are happening, but we have no power to change anything about it at all. And Martin Seligman saw this, as I say, in lots and lots of different situations, geopolitical and around the world, and also sometimes in relationships, if we look at a more microcosm of it. So sometimes people who are in marriages where there's addiction just feel they're trapped. There's nothing they can do about it. The only thing they could possibly do is leave. There is nothing else that they could possibly do.
So what's happened? They've tried lots of things that we now are trying to say to people don't work. And then they're just feeling that becomes how they feel. There is no point in doing this because it's not going to work. And I remember that feeling very much, what's the point? It was kind of part of the depression I was feeling as well.
Of course it is.
So we have to look at this because if we're going to go forward, we have to look at the fact that if you've been in this situation, certainly for quite an amount of time, there will be an inner resistance in applying some of these things. This is what we're saying, isn't it?
If you tell somebody they're powerless all the time, continually, then they'll start to believe it. Add to that the fact that, they've tried various things and nothing has happened, then they become convinced that they are powerless. Unfortunately, there are some organisations, that's exactly what they say. You're powerless. You're powerless in alcohol. And I take issue with this. I think you are powerless in some aspects, but not completely powerless.
Okay, this is kind of important because this is part of the 12-step program. And there is a sense in which it has a point, but it's not the total point.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Because
The point,
people will be thinking about this.
yes, the point is that, yes, you're the drinker, and I'm trying to get you to change. I can't make you change. So this is where we get to the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, that's the
And
powerlessness.
if you stop at that point, then you have the learned helplessness.
Yeah.
If you then add the corollary to that, which is, yes, but you can gallop it and make it thirsty.
Yeah.
Now, people change. Why? Because of the context. They change because of bad things or good things. They change because bad things are happening and they want away from them, or their good things could happen and they want to move to them. Carrot and stick. That's how people change.
Sure.
It's not rocket science. You don't want the bad things, you do want the good things. What tends to happen in addiction is the bad things, start change, the good things maintain it. And we'll talk about some of these things further up the line. So what we say in Bottled Up is that, no, you can't make the person change, but you can start to change the circumstances which make it more likely that they're going to change. You understand?
Yeah.
And this is where we can learn from the Martin Seligman, this learned helplessness. If you keep thinking that, no, I can't do anything, then you'll just stick in the same position and you won't try anything.
Yeah.
But if you say, no, change is possible, we're not saying it's definite, we're saying it's possible. And it is more likely, more probable if you do these things.
I mean, the whole program that, in Bottled Up is based on identifying the strategies that don't work, that most of us have been doing most of our life, living with an addiction, and then identifying things that do work, and then trying them and applying them.
And all the strategies that don't work, that we're saying don't do these things, are the things that increase the feeling of powerlessness, the feeling of learned helplessness. They sort of feed into that so that you're less liable to try something. And one of the things that people often say is, oh, I've done all that, I've tried all that, it doesn't work. And I go, yeah, but have you tried this? Yeah. No, you haven't. What have you tried? This, and go, yeah, fine, that's what happened. Now try these things. And so the first thing that we talk about in the program is stop.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. It's not doing you any good. Not only is it not effective, it's actually making you feel worse, feeling less powerless.
Absolutely. It's really interesting how deep the feeling is, because if I'm working with someone, when they come and tell me about all their problems, it's really interesting what happens first is the part of me comes up, says, just wants to protect them and tell them to go away and leave it. And the other part of me that's still quite strong, that I have to plough through, what can I do? I can't help them. This is so difficult. And that's my feeling of learned helplessness that was so deep within me. So let's not underestimate this. It's a very understandable feeling.
Don't underestimate it in the slightest. I mean, that was one of it was a very, very powerful finding, or a very powerful theory that Seligman put forward.
Yeah.
And you can see it in lots and lots of walks of life. Yeah.
Okay, so if that bit pops up and you were doing some inner dialogue, first of all, you would identify what it is. Then what would you say to that bit?
The first thing I would say to that bit is that, okay, well, let's look at what you've done in the past. And, nothing works. Why does it not work? Okay, you tried this. No, well, yeah, you wouldn't expect that to work. We wouldn't expect it to work because, and then we go through the 4 Ps, which is one of the podcasts we did further back. We called it Stop, but it's also the 4 Ps. Stop doing these things because they don't work. Start doing these other things. First thing you need to start with is detachment. You need to detach from your feelings. You need to move away from them, because while you're caught up in these feelings of anxiety, of powerlessness, then it's like a vicious circle or a descending spiral. it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And you feel less and less and less able, you know, you feel less and less and less able to change the situation. So you are, in effect, powerless.
Now, detachment is really hard, isn't it?
Of course it's
and
hard.
we use the term loving detachment.
Yeah.
So what is loving detachment?
Okay, a lot of people, when I mention detachment, go, oh, that means cutting off love from the person, not loving them anymore, you know, not being kind to them anymore, not, you know.
It's withholding, withdrawal, cold shoulder.
And I think,
kind of,
that's not really what we meant. We're talking about your feelings. You know, you're talking about your feelings to situations, not to the person.
Yeah.
You know, and it's trying to separate out the person from what's happening. Love the drinker, hate the drinking.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's separating those two out. You know, if you can sort of say, okay, I still love the drinker, but I'm going to detach from the drinking situation, what it makes me feel.
Or what I used to do, Mark 1 and Mark 2. Mark 2 for me was the
Yeah.
drinker. I loved Mark 1 and it was in there, but the drink
Jekyll and Hyde.
was obscuring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is which? I always forget.
Dr. Jekyll is the goodie. I mean, this is what I talk to
Excuse me.
people about quite a lot, that they want to spend much more time with Dr. Jekyll and much less time with Mr. Hyde. And because it really sums up alcoholism very, very well. They drink this elixir and, you know, you become something else. So, if you can separate these two out, that's what we're talking about, detachment. We're not talking about detaching from the person.
No.
We're talking about detaching from the behaviours, from the consequences of those behaviours, from the feelings associated with those behaviours. But if you are plunged into this feeling of helplessness all the time, it's very difficult to act from that position.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, oh, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't do it. One of the things that I remember years and years ago, I did a life-saving course in, in the swimming pool and things like that. And you used to say, the last thing you do is actually go into the swimming pool after them. Why? Because they panic. They're panicking and they'll drag you down with them. And it's very similar trying to help somebody who is in learned helplessness. They go, no, I can't. And they get into a ball and it becomes very difficult to get them back out of that ball. If you do the same thing in a swimming pool, you end up falling, they both go down. So you try and coax them out rather than go in with them. Yeah. And so that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get this sense of detachment, move away from these feelings.
So you can say to yourself, I still love Trevor. I still love Gail, Mark 1.
Yeah.
I hate the drink and I hate what it does to you. But I still love you. And I think inside then, you're going into compassion and mercy rather than revenge and hate.
Well, that's what most of the people who come to us, I keep saying the same thing. They come to us because they love their drinker.
Yeah.
Not because they hate their drinker. They're not coming to divorce lawyers or travel agents.
Yes.
That's not what they're coming to. They're coming to somebody who can help them sort this situation.
Yeah.
So we try and guide them through that. But the first thing we have to say is step back from this. Step back from the emotion. Because if you don't step back from the emotion, if you don't step back from this powerlessness, then it's going to be very, very difficult for you to change anything.
And I think that's where a little bit of anger can be a little bit of a spur there, because you can say to yourself, no, I'm not going to let this drink further erode my feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, there are physical things you can do. I mean, we say very clearly, do not sit around. The worst thing for your feelings and for your relationship is to sit and watch a drunk get worse and worse. Get out. You don't need to look at it. Don't look at it. Again, protect yourself. And that's loving detachment outworked in a physical way.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things is starting to break the old patterns.
Yeah.
That's very empowering. As you say, don't sit down with the drunk. I'm a drunk. You're there. I want you to sit and listen to
Yes.
all my war stories that
Yes.
I'm going to tell you,
Yeah.
that I told you last week and the week before and the week before that, and the week before that, and I love you, it's just, why should you?
Mm.
But if you're used to sitting there, then you're reinforcing my behaviour that I'm so interesting when I'm drinking
Yeah.
that you want to listen to me.
One thing I did decide to do when I decided I would do things differently, I did actually indicate to my partner what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, from now on, I'm not going to sit and watch you drink. I'm going to take myself away. Or we're not going to, as a family,
Absolutely.
look at what's happening. Yeah. Same thing at parties and things like that. I just made it really clear that I wasn't going to hang around whilst they just made a fool of themselves. I was going to taxi and go home. And that, again, is loving detachment. You're kind of saying, I'm not looking at this behaviour anymore. I'm not going to hang around and be part of this.
Yeah, I mean, later on we're going to look at, break down the sort of the consequences of drinking by looking at them a wee bit closer and looking at maybe some of the things that you can do. But yes, if you identify some of these behaviours, some of the ways you can make a difference is sit down and talk to the drinker first. Look, we're going to this party. If you get drunk, I'm not staying. I'm off. You need to get a taxi home. Rather than just spring it on them halfway through they feel ambushed.
Absolutely,
Whereas it's very empowering saying, this is what I'm going to do under these circumstances, and I'm going to do it. And then doing it, that's very empowering.
Incredibly empowering,
Just leaving halfway through the party is not empowering. That's retreat. Retreat, or at least that's the way it comes across.
Yeah.
So you are empowering yourself by saying, look, I'm going to watch this film tonight. If you're drinking, please do it in another room. Me and the family are going to watch the film. If you're drinking, we really don't want you near us. You spoil it and go away. And then if they start drinking, you go, no, other room.
Or you might need to be the one that goes in the other room, because once a drinker starts drinking, they can be very obstinate.
As long as you negotiate to begin with, and get them to stick to it. But it's changing all these different patterns, the old one, that they stop at the pub every night, and roll in late, the notice on the table, your dinner's in the dog. Sorry, I wasn't waiting for you.
Yeah.
But again, you're telling them.
Yeah, so you're changing the dance again here, aren't you?
You're changing the dance. You're breaking the old patterns. And this is the empowerment. This is the empowerment. So what is going back to what we were talking about before, you are now galloping the horse, and making it thirsty. Because you're changing the consequences, you're changing the environment, you're changing what happens surrounding the drinking. It's no longer what it used to be. It's something different.
And I can still remember the triumph that I began to feel, First few years of living with a drinker were really, really hard for me because I was doing all the things that, with a partner, if they love you and you ask them to stop doing it, generally they stop because they love you. And I was going, we go into this with the 4 Ps. I was just exhausting all the normal patterns of behavior that help. And it was really, really dreadful. But when I cottoned on to what was happening, the shaping of my own character and maturity, integrity, and everything else, I got my life back because I began to control my life.
Of course.
And the triumph I felt with that, My triumph early on was when I was really horrible to him, picking a fight, and I'd say something horrible and walk out, but that wasn't really triumph. But when actually I hit the drinking and I just said, I'm sorry, I'm not looking this, I love you, but I don't like what's going on here, and walked out, that was a really different feeling. I was making my point, but with dignity and integrity, rather than feeling ghastly afterwards.
You feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Feeling helpless, you don't feel very good about yourself. Yeah. If you don't feel very good about yourself, opening the door for the depression.
Yeah.
All the anxieties, all the negative emotions, they're all sitting there. If you start to free yourself by breaking patterns and negotiating these and say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. No.
If you don't like it, change.
Yeah. And I know we're always saying that this is easy. We say this over and over again. But if you begin to do it, you get your Oscar. That, we are Oscar-winning people if we are living with a drinker. The prize for learning not to react, learning to take care of your family. I mean, the prizes go on and on and on. And you must begin to see yourself that. You're not somebody that's blowing it all the time. You're someone that's learning to make progress in a very, very tough journey, and you deserve an Oscar. And you need to say that to yourself, and certainly hear it from us, because we're going to say it a lot. You are Oscar-winning people, and we are incredibly proud of you. We've got to know some of you, and you're flipping amazing, I tell you that. So essentially, we're talking about freeing ourselves to be the person we want to be, rather than reacting to the person, the situation.
You free yourself in a number of different ways. First of all, if you go back to Martin Seligman, the gate's open, walk out it.
Yeah.
Whereas previously, it felt as if the gate was still there and you couldn't get out. Now the gate is down, walk out. So you're freeing yourself in that respect. But you're also freeing yourself to be the person that you really are. Because, you don't have to be tied in with by these behaviours, and you are the one who's starting to lead the dance here. You're the one who's saying, no, I don't want this, I don't want that, I do want this, I do want that, and this is the way it's going to be. And that gives you dignity.
Oh, it does. It was pivotal for me. I think I just had a dreadful round, looking at how I felt, trembling with anger, And I thought, I can't do this anymore, And and actually, me, I'm quite a loving, compassionate person. And I just felt I was being turned into, really horrible.
Some harpy.
So, it was, a desperate moment, but very pivotal. And I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to let that drink change me into someone that isn't me. We all will have our versions of doing that. And again, when you do, well done. Well done.
No, this is a very freeing thing. You're detaching from the emotions, you're detaching from the behaviour, and you're starting. But you need to do that to find you, to find the strength to do these things.
And maybe the escaping is that you're listening to thinking, you know what, I've got to get out of the cage. And again, if that's right for you, again, we would positively and absolutely support you.
So the biggest takeaway, as far as I'm concerned, is you're not powerless. You're not powerless. You might feel that you are, but you've got to find it. You've got to find the power, and the power is there. It's about doing small things. Small things make, do the change. To quote my granny, "Minnie a mickle, max a muckle."
He's Scottish.
It's a very Scottish thing.
At this point.
Just lots of little things make a big thing. And that's what it is. It's just, like a savings account, and, and it just, all these small things, they all add up.
And I think in this day and age, empowerment is really important in people's psyche. We're taught to take charge, aren't we?
I think in the 12-step tradition, the powerlessness, yes, it is very important, and it's very important it's there. I think what we have to say is that you are powerless to change your drinker, but you're not powerless to influence that change.
That's good.
And that's the difference. You can't make them change, but you can certainly influence the change. And the more you do, the more you influence that change.
And you don't need to let alcohol decide what you do or how you feel. And that is the truth, but it's something that you will gradually learn about yourself when you realize it's possible. You may be listening to this thinking that you're just stuck in a complete hole and you don't know how to get out. The answer to that is one step at a time. We can't magic away all the different things that surround you, but you can, a step at a time, begin to climb out of the situation that you're in. And then finally, again, we say this over and again, learn to leave the dance, not follow.
That's right. Yeah, and I think the dance is actually a very good analogy here, because your drinker is leading the dance all the time. So step forward.
Learn the waltz, not the breakdown.
Absolutely.
So thank you for listening today. Please like and subscribe to this podcast And if you like what we're doing, please leave us a good review, or probably even more importantly, share with somebody else. It helps us reach as many people as possible. Remember that for more help and resources, you can go to our website, www.bottled-up.com. Join us next time. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.